happened when you exposed your boss's embezzlement at the company gala? I stood at the microphone during our company's annual holiday gala, my hands shaking as 300 people in black tie attire stared at me. My boss, CEO Nathan Caldwell, was smiling from his table, probably thinking I was about to give a standard toast to another successful year. Instead, I said, before we celebrate, there's something everyone needs to know. Our CEO has been stealing from this company. And I have proof. My name is Alex Chun, and I was the senior accountant at Tech Vista Solutions, a rapidly growing software company in Austin, Texas. We'd gone from a scrappy startup to a $200 million valuation in just 5 years, with plans to go public within 18 months. I'd been there since the beginning, employee number 12, and I'd helped build the financial systems that tracked every dollar in and out of the company. Nathan Caldwell was a charismatic CEO who'd convinced venture capitalists to invest $50 million in his vision. He drove a Tesla, wore expensive suits, and gave TED-style talks about disrupting industries. He was on the cover of business magazines as one of the 40 under 40 tech leaders to watch. Everyone wanted to be him or work for him. I was 32 years old, making $140,000 a year as senior accountant with stock options that could be worth millions if we went public successfully. I had everything to lose by going after Nathan. But I also had something he didn't: integrity and a complete understanding of where our money was actually going. The first irregularity I noticed was small. A $15,000 payment to a consulting firm I didn't recognize. I pulled up the invoice and it looked legitimate, so I approved it and moved on. Then the next month, there was another $15,000 to the same firm. And another the month after that. I asked Nathan's executive assistant about it during a routine meeting. What's Apex Strategic Consulting? We're paying them $15,000 monthly, but I don't see any deliverables or reports. She looked uncomfortable. That's something Nathan handles directly. He said not to discuss it with anyone. That was a red flag. In a properly run company, every expense should have documentation and approval trails. I started digging deeper into Apex Strategic Consulting. The company had been formed 18 months ago in Delaware, a common state for shell companies because of privacy laws. The registered agent was a law firm that specialized in corporate structures. There was no website, no employees listed, no actual business presence. I expanded my search to other suspicious payments. What I found made my stomach drop. Over the past 18 months, Nathan had created a network of fake vendors and consulting firms. Apex Strategic was just one of at least 7 fraudulent companies, all receiving regular payments from Tech Vista. The amounts varied: $10,000 here, $25,000 there, occasionally $50,000 for special projects. Individually, they were small enough to avoid scrutiny. Collectively, they added up to over $8.2 million stolen from a company over 18 months. But here's what made it brilliant from a fraud perspective. Nathan had structured the payments to stay just under our board approval thresholds. Anything over $50,000 required board authorization. Nathan's fake invoices were always $45,000 or less, keeping them within his CEO spending authority. I spent 3 weeks verifying everything before I took action. I contacted every supposedly legitimate vendor to confirm they'd actually done work for us. None of them existed as functioning businesses. I traced the bank accounts where payments went using our banking records and some creative research. All of them eventually flowed to accounts Nathan controlled. I documented everything in a detailed report: fake companies, payment histories, bank account traces, estimated total theft. The evidence was overwhelming. Nathan Caldwell had systematically embezzled over $8 million from a company he'd founded. The question was what to do with this information. Going to Nathan directly seemed stupid. He'd just deny it and probably fire me. Going to our CFO seemed risky since she reported to Nathan and might tip him off. The board of directors was the proper channel, but I was a mid-level employee with no direct access to them. I decided to document everything and send it to our board chairman, David Morrison, who was a venture capitalist with a reputation for zero tolerance of fraud. I spent a weekend preparing a comprehensive report with 150 pages of evidence, timeline charts, and financial analysis. Monday morning, I sent the report via encrypted email to David Morrison with the subject line: urgent, evidence of CEO fraud, confidential board matter. Then I waited and waited. 3 days passed with no response. I started to panic, wondering if the email had been intercepted or if Morrison was in on it somehow. Then on Thursday afternoon, I got called into an unexpected meeting with Nathan and our CFO, Linda Torres. "Alex, we need to discuss some concerns about your work performance," Nathan said, his voice friendly, but his eyes cold. This was it. He knew I'd reported him, and he was going to fire me before the board could investigate. "What concerns?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. Linda pushed a folder across the table. "We've noticed several accounting errors in your recent work. Misclassified expenses, incorrect reconciliations, incomplete documentation. We're concerned about your attention to detail." I opened the folder. Inside were printouts of reports I'd supposedly prepared, full of obvious mistakes and errors. Except I'd never created these reports. They were forgeries designed to make me look incompetent. I didn't prepare these reports, I said. These aren't my work. They have your name on them, Nathan said smoothly. And they're in the company system under your user credentials. He'd hacked my login or had IT create fake documents under my name. He was building a paper trail to justify firing me and discredit anything I said about his embezzlement. This is retaliation, I said. I know what you're doing, Nathan. His face didn't change. I don't know what you're talking about. We're simply addressing performance issues that have come to our attention. We're placing you on a performance improvement plan, effective immediately. 30 days to correct these issues, or we'll have to let you go. A performance improvement plan, or PIP, was usually the first step toward termination, and 30 days gave Nathan time to complete his cover-up before I could cause more problems. I left that meeting knowing I had a choice: accept the inevitable termination and move on, or fight back. If I stayed quiet, Nathan would fire me in 30 days, I'd lose my stock options, and he'd continue stealing. But if I fought, I risked destroying my career in tech. Nathan was well-connected and vindictive. That weekend, I made copies of everything. Every document, every email, every piece of evidence. I stored backups in multiple locations, knowing Nathan might try to destroy evidence or lock me out of company systems. Monday morning, David Morrison finally responded to my email. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Board meeting scheduled for December 15th to review allegations. Please keep this confidential. December 15th was 3 weeks away, and it was also the night of our company's annual holiday gala, the biggest event of the year where we celebrated our success and announced bonuses. I had 3 weeks to survive without getting fired or having evidence destroyed. 3 weeks where Nathan knew I was a threat but didn't know exactly what I'd done or who I'd contacted. The next 2 weeks were psychological warfare. Nathan started excluding me from meetings. Projects I'd been working on were reassigned without explanation. My office was accidentally broken into over a weekend, though nothing was reportedly stolen. My work computer experienced mysterious technical issues that required IT to access my files. I documented everything, keeping detailed notes of every suspicious incident. I worked from home as much as possible, using personal devices and encrypted backups. I told my partner Sarah about everything, wanting someone to know the full story in case something happened to me. This is dangerous, Sarah said. Nathan's a multimillionaire who's desperate. Desperate people do desperate things. She was right to be worried. I started noticing a car that seemed to follow me sometimes. Nothing obvious, just a presence I couldn't quite prove. Nathan was either having me surveilled or I was becoming paranoid. Probably both. The company gala was scheduled for December 15th at the Four Seasons Hotel, a black tie event for all employees plus investors and board members. It was Nathan's favorite night of the year, his chance to play the successful visionary CEO in front of everyone who mattered. The board meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. that same day, 6 hours before the gala. David Morrison had told me to be available by phone during the meeting in case they had questions about my evidence. I spent December 15th in a hotel room near the Four Seasons, my phone in my hand, waiting for the call. At 2:30 p.m., David Morrison called. Alex, the board has reviewed your evidence. We're prepared to confront Nathan this evening and demand his resignation. We'll need you to be present to answer technical questions about the financials. Tonight, at the gala. No, we're scheduling an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. Tonight, we're going to inform Nathan privately that we know about the embezzlement and give him the option to resign quietly or face public exposure and criminal charges. That was the civilized approach. The board would offer Nathan a way out, resign, return the money, and disappear. They'd avoid the scandal and negative publicity that would hurt the company's valuation. But I'd spent 3 weeks being harassed and threatened by Nathan. I'd watched him steal millions while playing the visionary leader. The idea of him getting a quiet resignation and walking away made me furious. What if he doesn't resign? I asked. Then we terminate him immediately and file criminal charges. But we're hoping to resolve this discreetly for the good of the company. I understood their position. A public scandal right before going public could destroy TechVista's valuation. Investors would run. Employees would quit. Everything we built could collapse. The board wanted to protect the company, but I wanted justice. I showed up at the gala at 6 p.m. wearing a rented tuxedo, feeling completely out of place. The ballroom was decorated with thousands of lights and ice sculptures. There was an open bar with premium liquor, a catered dinner from Austin's best restaurant, and a live band. The budget for this party alone was probably $200,000, money Nathan had approved while simultaneously stealing from the company. Nathan arrived fashionably late with his wife, working the room like a politician. He was charming, funny, hugging employees and thanking investors. When he saw me, his smile faltered for just a second before returning full force. Alex, Glad you could make it. How are you? Fine, thanks. I kept my voice neutral. Great. We should talk soon about your performance plan. I think with some guidance, we can get you back on track. He was so confident, so certain he'd won. He had no idea the board had spent the afternoon reviewing evidence of his crimes. David Morrison and 2 other board members were there, chatting casually with investors but watching Nathan carefully. At 7 p.m., Morrison caught Nathan's attention and gestured toward a private room off the ballroom. The board was about to make their offer, resign quietly or face consequences. I watched them disappear into the back room. 15 minutes passed. 20. 30. Then Nathan emerged alone, his face red, his jaw clenched. He walked straight to the bar and ordered a double scotch. Morrison came out a minute later and caught my eye. He shook his head slightly. Nathan had refused to resign. He was going to fight the accusations, claim I'd fabricated evidence, and dare the board to fire him. The speeches were scheduled for 8 p.m. Nathan was supposed to give his annual State of the Company address, thanking everyone and announcing bonuses. Instead, Morrison took the microphone first. Before we begin tonight's celebrations, I have an important announcement about company leadership. Nathan stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly. I don't think that's necessary, David. Everyone's here to celebrate, not discuss boring business matters. Sit down, Nathan. The board has made a decision. The board doesn't have the authority to. We have every authority. You're terminated, effective immediately, for cause. Security will escort you from the premises. The ballroom went silent. 300 people frozen, trying to understand what they'd just witnessed. Nathan's face went from red to purple. This is illegal. I'll sue. I'll destroy all of you. Do you know who I am? What I've built? We know exactly what you've built, including the $8 million you've stolen. Gasps throughout the room. Someone dropped a glass, the crash echoing in the silence. Everyone stared at Nathan, at Morrison, trying to process what was happening. Nathan turned to the crowd, his arms spread. This is a coup. A political hit job by board members who want to take over the company. Alex Chun here, he pointed at me, has fabricated evidence because he's angry about a performance review. Don't believe any of this. That's when I stood up. I hadn't planned to speak. I was supposed to stay quiet and let the board handle everything. But watching Nathan lie to 300 people who trusted him, watching him try to paint himself as the victim, something snapped. I'm the one who uncovered the embezzlement, I said, my voice carrying across the silent ballroom. I have 18 months of evidence. Fake companies, fraudulent invoices, stolen money. And I can prove all of it. Alex, this isn't the time, Morrison started. No, this is exactly the time. Everyone here deserves to know the truth. We've been working our asses off to build this company, while Nathan's been stealing from us. The bonuses he was going to announce tonight? Paid for with money he stole. The stock options we're all counting on? Devalued by his fraud. He doesn't get to walk out of here playing the victim. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the ballroom's presentation screen. Within seconds, I had documents displayed showing the fake vendor payments, the shell companies, the money trails. Apex Strategic Consulting, Meridian Advisory Group, Summit Solutions Partners. All fake companies. All created by Nathan. All receiving payments from TechVista totaling over $8 million. I clicked through slides showing bank records, incorporation documents, timeline charts. Everything I'd spent 3 weeks documenting was now displayed for everyone to see. Nathan tried to leave. 2 security guards blocked the exits. Morrison had anticipated this and had them standing by. You can't do this, Nathan said, his voice desperate now. I built this company. I made you all rich. So I took a little for myself. I earned it. You didn't earn it. You stole it. From employees who trusted you. From investors who believed in you. From all of us who've been working 70-hour weeks while you bought sports cars with embezzled money. Someone in the crowd started clapping. Then another person. Then half the room was applauding while Nathan stood there, his empire crumbling in real time. I'll fight this, Nathan said, trying to maintain some dignity. I have lawyers. I have resources. You'll regret this. Maybe, I said, but at least I'll be able to look at myself in the mirror. Can you say the same? Security escorted Nathan out through a side door. His wife followed, refusing to look at anyone. The ballroom erupted in conversation, people clustering in groups, trying to process what had just happened. Morrison took the microphone again. I apologize for the disruption to tonight's celebration. The board will be conducting a full investigation and working with law enforcement. In the meantime, Linda Torres will serve as interim CEO, and Alex Chun will be promoted to CFO to help ensure financial oversight. Wait, what? I was being promoted? I'd expected to be thanked and maybe kept on as senior accountant. CFO was a C-suite executive position. Morrison found me after his announcement. You did the right thing, even though we'd prefer to handle it differently. But you were right, everyone deserved to know. The CFO position is yours if you want it. $250,000 salary plus stock options. I was 28 years old. I'd never been a CFO before, but I'd just taken down a corrupt CEO in front of 300 people, so I guess I could figure out the rest. I'll take it, I said. The next weeks were chaos. Federal investigators from the FBI's white-collar crime division arrived to examine our financial records. Nathan hired expensive lawyers who claimed the payments were legitimate business expenses that I'd misunderstood. The media picked up the story. Tech CEO accused of $8 million embezzlement. My 15 minutes of fame were uncomfortable. Journalists called constantly wanting interviews. LinkedIn messages flooded in from recruiters and other companies wanting to hire the whistleblower CFO. Some people call me a hero. Others called me a snitch who destroyed Nathan's life for personal advancement. The investigation took 6 months. Federal prosecutors built their case methodically, tracing every dollar, interviewing every involved party. Nathan's lawyers tried every delay tactic, but the evidence was overwhelming. The trial lasted 3 weeks. I testified for 2 days, walking the jury through the financial evidence step by step. Nathan's defense was that the payments were legitimate consulting fees for strategic advice, but they couldn't produce any actual work product or even name the consultants supposedly providing advice. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts: wire fraud, embezzlement, money laundering. Nathan was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison in order to repay the $8.2 million plus interest and penalties. His wife divorced him during the trial. His luxury apartment was seized. His Tesla was sold. Everything he built through fraud was stripped away. He went from magazine covers and TED Talks to federal prison. Tech Vista survived the scandal barely. We lost some investors who didn't want the reputational risk. Our IPO was delayed by 2 years. But we came back stronger with new leadership focused on transparency and oversight. When we finally went public, the company was valued at $380 million. My stock options were worth $2.4 million. Not bad for an accountant who'd risked everything to expose fraud. But the money wasn't the important part. What mattered was that we'd proven you could stand up to corrupt leadership and win. That whistleblowers could survive and even thrive. That doing the right thing, while terrifying and risky, was possible. I'm still CFO of Tech Vista 5 years later. We're now worth over $600 million with 400 employees. Every new hire goes through ethics training that includes Nathan's case as an example of what happens when leadership loses integrity. I think about that night at the Gala sometimes. Standing at that microphone, making the decision to expose everything publicly instead of letting the board handle it quietly. It was probably the most reckless and the most right thing I've ever done. Nathan sends me letters from prison occasionally. They're always the same: complaints about his treatment, claims that he was railroaded, promises that he'll clear his name eventually. I don't respond. What would I say? That stealing $8 million was wrong. That fraud has consequences. He already knows that. He just doesn't accept it. The hardest part of the whole experience was the 6 months between discovering the fraud and exposing it. Living with that knowledge, being harassed and threatened, not knowing if I'd be believed or if Nathan would successfully destroy my credibility. That paranoia and stress aged me in ways that still show up. Sarah, my partner, says I'm more cynical now, more distrustful of authority, more likely to question financial statements and leadership decisions. She's right. Once you've seen how easy it is for someone charismatic and powerful to steal millions while everyone applauds them, you can't unsee it. But I'm also more confident. I know I can stand up to powerful people when necessary. I know I can handle pressure and threats. I know my moral compass works even when it's pointing toward difficult choices. Would I do it again knowing everything I know now? Absolutely. Because the alternative was letting Nathan steal from hundreds of employees who trusted him, while I stayed quiet to protect my own career. And I couldn't live with that person. The tech industry loves disruption and moving fast and breaking things. But some things shouldn't be broken. Trust, integrity, basic honesty. Nathan forgot that. Or maybe he never cared in the first place. Now I run the finances for a company worth over $500 million. Every financial decision goes through multiple layers of oversight. Every vendor is verified. Every payment is documented. We probably have too many controls now, making some processes slower and more bureaucratic. But we'll never have another Nathan Caldwell stealing millions while everyone applauds. And that's worth the extra paperwork. Thanks for listening to this story. It still feels surreal sometimes that I exposed a CEO at a company gala and somehow came out ahead. If you made it to the end, drop a comment about your experiences with workplace corruption or ethical dilemmas. I love reading all your comments.